My meditations this week have been, as it happens often with me, I've been focused on the collect. We prayed, Almighty, ever-living God, direct our actions according to your good pleasure, that in the name of your beloved Son we may abound in good works. And there was one word in there that really stuck with me this week. But I want to start with the idea of good works. There are a lot of reasons for doing good and avoiding evil. And the most basic one, obviously, is we want to get to heaven. We do good to get to heaven. If we're afraid if we sin, we go to hell. And that's what we teach our kids, right? They learn pretty soon, do good and get rewarded, and do bad and get punished. And so this is the most basic level, you might say the most immature level of the moral life. And I use that word immature, not denigrating, I'm not denigrating it, I'm just describing that this is where we start, right? And so we start that way, and the trouble is if often we stay there, that we think that as we pray in one of the acts of contrition, and I detest all my sins because I dread the loss of heaven and the pains of hell. And so there's nothing bad about that, right? It's just not, there's more possible in the spiritual life, in the moral life than that, And so we start there, but if we're serious about our spiritual life, we get to another level of wanting to do good because it's good. We like doing good. We find that we prefer doing good. We enjoy it. You can get to that point, We enjoy doing good more than doing evil for various reasons. And what the next level is a level of virtue, you might say. The Catechism tells us that good works in themselves are not virtue. Virtue comes when we prefer to do good, when we enjoy to do good, when it becomes a habit, and we don't even think about it anymore. And so that habitual nature and the enjoyment of good, then we come to the level of virtue. But it seems to me in this prayer, and this is what struck me this week, there's a level even beyond virtue. And the word that really stuck with me this week was the word abound, that we might abound in good works. And I'm sure we know what that word means, but just to give it a picture, it comes from, in Latin, it's abundare. Undare means to flow. And ab is a kind of intensifier. It means, that it flows out. It's built up so much that it just spills over. And we find that this kind of goodness is something even beyond, it seems like, virtue. And it reminded me of Psalm 84. Blessed are they in whose hearts are the roads to Zion. As they walk through the valley of bitterness or tears, they make it a place of springs. And they walk with ever-growing strength. And the God of gods will be seen in Zion. And so you see that this level of goodness, where goodness just flows out and it makes everything around us better. And in some ways, this is what God is. We call God all good, or goodness itself, we could say. And I remember one time one of the children asked me, what does God do all day? I love their questions, I never thought of it quite, but the more I thought about it, and so I answered her, good. That's what God does all day, is good. Because God is all good, and that's all he is, right? So, all he is, you know what I mean? And so he might do good in creating, or in sanctifying, or in redeeming, or whatever, but it's all good what God does. So if your kids ever ask you that, what does God do all day? Say, good. But it's available to us to do that as well. To be so filled with goodness that it just spills out. And we come to that in a couple of ways. One way is through our good acts. We often think of acts going out. This is what we do, right? But everything we do rebounds to us as well. And so part of the way we become good is by doing good. Part of the way we become evil is by doing evil. In one of Robert Frost's poems, he says, way leads on to way. And it just builds up. So the more good I do, the gooder I get, if I can put it that way. You know what I mean? The more good I get. The second way, of course, that's not the only way. We can't become good or holy on our own. It's from God. And so the second way we get there is by deepening our relationship with God. Coming so close to God that God's holiness fills us, His goodness fills us until it flows out of us. And this morning, as I was praying some more about it, it seemed like God was showing me that I actually even missed last night, or yet this week, I even missed what perhaps is the most important part of this prayer. Almighty ever-living God, direct our actions according to your good pleasure, so that we may abound in good works. You might have heard the phrase, yeah, it's a good thing, but not a God thing. And so ultimately, we don't always know exactly what's good, We learn it through the commandments in the church, etc. But God knows always what is good and what He wants done. And so we pray, direct us according to your good pleasure. And if we're directed by God, if our lives are directed by God, then good will come naturally from our lives. And this kind of thing I would call excellence. We don't talk about excellence in the moral life very much. We seem to talk more about, what's good enough to do, or what should I do, what should I avoid, not, hey, become like God. That's what we're called to be. We bear Christ's name, right? And He gives us the grace. We have the grace to become this. We just don't use it, and we're not motivated. I was thinking, nobody in the NBA or NFL or NHL wants to be a pretty good basketball player or football player. But we seem often to be satisfied to be pretty good Christians. And I even hear this phrase still, oh no, he's a good guy. She's a good girl, good woman. That's not what we're called to. There's nothing in the scriptures or in the church teaching that calls us to be pretty good people, What we're called to is holiness, which is excellence. And what if every morning we woke up and we say, God, direct me today so that I may abound in good works, so that goodness may just flow out of me everywhere. It's a different way of praying. I've been doing it a little bit this week, in the mornings when I get up the first thing. And it's feels different. I don't know what's going on, but it seems like that prayer, if we're intent on it, something might happen. So it seems like in this prayer reminds us that good works are not just, okay, I should be good because I'm Christian, or if I'm good enough, I'll get to heaven, but goodness is the goal. Not just good works, but that goodness, those good works will flow out of us. For that to happen, it has to be, our hearts and souls have to be filled with God's goodness. So I just encourage you to think about what it would mean to be an excellent Christian, so to speak. Think about excellence in your spiritual life. Think about being, how do I get so close to God and have God so fill me up that it flows out? And you'll notice then that kind of goodness, those good works, are not about us anymore. If I say, well, I want to do good, I'm afraid of the loss of heaven, the pains of hell, that's really about me. But if I say, God, so direct my life, that good works just flow out of me, that they abound, that everywhere is good works, that suddenly is about God then. And in that psalm, I quoted the part of the psalm, the end of it is, and the God of gods will be seen in Zion. Think of Matthew. Let your light so shine that people see your good works and they glorify your Father in heaven. That's really what our call is. That kind of excellence and fullness of holiness and goodness that just flows out and makes the world better.